Hey everyone. We're going to try this again. How's the audio sound for those of you who are joining? Does the audio sound a little bit better? If you're just joining, my name is Joanna Miller. I'm the lead of learning and development at a tech company called Asana. It still sounds robotic. All right. Let's see if we can get this going. It's still staticky? Okay. Is this any better? Perhaps it's my hair. It's still there's buzzing, it's robotic. I was touching my ears a little bit. I'm gonna test. This is Joanna Miller. It's a little bit better. No, not better. Okay, for some. You think it's vibrating off the tripod? Okay, my name is Joanna. Maybe try it again without the headphones. I'll try that. Hold on. I've tried adding them. I'm sorry that this is causing so much trouble. Is this better at all? Is this better at all? This is Joanna. I'm the lead of learning and development, and I'm excited to talk to you about learning and development and navigating your career. Okay, I'm getting some feedback from people that this is better, that it's way better. Awesome. Great. Thank you all for rolling with me. There's always excitement whenever you're trying something for the first time. And this is my first IG Live. And this is, leaning away from the phone a bit is better. My voice is I'm going to try this one more time. And this is Joanna Miller. And someone is suggesting that I turn the Bluetooth all the way off. Thank you all for. All right, how about this? Is this better? Welcome to folks who are joining. My name is Joanna. I'm going to be talking to you about learning and development as well as navigating your career and what are some steps you can take during this time of uncertainty to still network and get exposure to different careers. I'm getting some sound and reactions from folks that this is perfect. I'm so excited that it's working now. Life has technical difficulties. Navigating your career also sometimes had roadblocks and barriers. So I'm happy that we were able to navigate that together. And sometimes you need help from your internet friends in order to get into things. So I'm going to get into it now. So for those of you who are joining, my name is Joanna. I lead learning and development at a tech company called Asana. And learning and development is a department, usually within a company, that is focused on helping people develop skills, go to trainings, and have experiences and get exposure to resources that allow them to grow into their role. It also helps them get promoted. And it also, in my opinion, helps you get exposed to everything else that's going on in your industry that'll help you be even more employable in the future, or maybe even entrepreneurial. I see lots of Asana love here in the comments and the reactions that are coming through. It's great to hear that there's some fans out there. Asana, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is an app and also a software based in the cloud that helps teams collaborate together more easily. So if you're doing any type of project or any type of activity that has a few people collaborating on it together, you can use Asana to organize everything that you need to do. And just for those of you who are joining, again, I see some people use Asana at work already. That's awesome. My pronouns are she, hers. And again, my name is Joanna. I am the lead of learning and development at Asana. If you guys have questions about navigating your career, we're going to be talking about what are some steps that you can take in order to expose yourself to more industries, more opportunities, build your network. Please drop those questions below. And I have a couple of things to share with you just about my journey to here, but I would love to get some questions from each of you who is here to really help you on your way. Awesome. So I was saying before we had technical difficulties that I studied Romance languages and literatures in college. And some of you might be wondering, how did you study Italian literature and end up at a tech company focused on learning and development? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So I started my career after graduating from college with this degree in Italian literature. And I started my job search really focused on companies that were investing in their teams. And the reason I knew about this is because my very first job, my very first internship that I ever got when I was 17, and I see a question coming in here is, how do you suggest networking in this climate? I can't go to events like I used to because of the pandemic. I'm definitely going to get to that, Spenderella. One of the things that I was exposed to at my internship, which was at an insurance company, is what's called an engagement survey. And it's a survey that that companies do to gauge how satisfied the employees are with working there. And I did some data analysis on this. My project during my internship was to analyze the information from the survey and create some activities for employees to get involved in to build community at work. At that job, I was exposed to the fact that companies actually cared about what their employees thought. And I thought that was really cool, and that you could create events and things to engage people. I didn't even know that was an opportunity. So 4 years later, when I was looking for a full-time job, I looked for companies that had HR teams, that had teams that were focused on training their teams. And that actually led me into retail, corporate retail, and I worked at Abercrombie and Fitch. And there I went into this program where I was trained how to be a fashion merchant, how to analyze selling reports, interact with customers, build products. And I got exposure to really great strategic development. And then I left A&F and I moved out to California, and I worked at a company called Levi's, which some of you may have heard of. And at Levi's, when I got there, it was a really great job opportunity, and I was exposed to much more global opportunities. But I realized that there was very little opportunity to grow and learn on the job. So I asked my boss if I could organize some learning events for people on our team. So think about how to use Excel. What do you do in a factory? How do you build a garment from basically fabric and threads to being in the store? And I got so into developing these things on the side that my boss said, we're actually going to create a whole program so that the people here have all the skills that they need. Would you like to be part of the team that's developing it? So I joined that team. And then after a few months of doing that work, I decided this is what I wanted to change my career to be focused on. How do you learn and grow people internally and really connect them with what they're passionate about? And so I started doing that at Levi's, and then that led me to my opportunity at Asana. So this is, I hope this illustrates a little bit that following your passion, being exposed to things and following your curiosity, and also talking to people about what you might be interested in creating in the environment that you're in can help people remember that, oh, that's the woman, that's the person who's interested in that. We should ask them to get involved on this project. You also can volunteer for these opportunities too and say, I don't know if this is possible right now in this moment at my company or at your organization, but if it becomes possible in the future, I want to be considered for it. and what would need to be true, what skills would I need to have in order for you to consider me. So that way, while someone is off creating their, deciding what their team is going to be focused on, they have you in the back of their mind. All right. So another thing that I really want to talk about is setbacks. Because as we all experienced a little bit earlier, there was a little bit of hijinks around getting started. And I don't know anyone who is successful in their role who hasn't experienced setbacks before. So one of the things that happened to me early in my career is that I thought I was doing really well. And I thought I was going to be up for a promotion. And when the promotion time came, I wasn't promoted. And when I reached out to my boss to get to understand why I wasn't being promoted, they said to me that my boss at the time had thought that I needed to work on a few things. And the unfortunate thing is that my boss never told me I needed to work on them. I also didn't really ask. And that I hadn't demonstrated to people outside of my manager that I really was working on those things. So at that point, I realized the importance of, it's not just about the relationship that you have with your manager. It's not just about the relationship that you have with the other coworkers that you work with. It's about building your relationship with people who you work with on other teams. It's about making sure that people know what you're accomplishing every day. Because that was the other thing I was doing. I was just really focused on my work in my lane. I wasn't really telling anyone the stuff that I was spending my time on each day. And so they didn't know what I was working on, and I couldn't talk about that and what impact I was creating. So one of the things I think it's really important for all of you out there to remember is that you need to make sure that you're connecting with people outside your primary team. I see a question here coming in about tips for writing resumes and applications for interviews. That's a great question. One of the things I advise that you do is spend some time reflecting on what are all the skills that you have, whether that be communication, maybe it's organizing, maybe it's project management, maybe you're good at summarizing things and briefing people, because that's really important in a lot of organizations. And then I would talk to people who have the roles that you're interested in applying for. You might see a job listing, and it'll have some skills listed there and some things that are focused on, that the job is going to be focused on. And I would reach out maybe on LinkedIn, maybe on Facebook. You see people who have those types of roles that you're interested in, and ask them what skills really make them successful on the job. The second thing, after you do your skills and you reflect on that, is think about stories where maybe you've overcome adversity, or where you've experienced a setback and you were able to make a silver lining out of it. Having these stories and really exemplifying how you've made challenging situations into really impactful ones speaks really highly of your ability to do that in a workplace or in another organization. The other piece of a question that came through earlier from one of the folks on here is around networking during a time of pandemic. So I actually have a really surprising piece of feedback or advice for all of you. It has never been easier to reach people. In the past, before we were mostly staying at home, you maybe had to go to an event, you had to connect with someone or schedule a coffee or a meetup. Now, everyone typically has a phone or a computer or some way that they can access each other. And so people like myself, we have much more time for meetings with folks who are interested in exploring the roles. And also people are online more often. So what I would recommend that you do is reach out to folks on LinkedIn and be very specific in your ask. You can say, I noticed that you do this type of work, or that you moved from this type of company, like a nonprofit, into a for-profit company, and I'd love to know specifically how you did that. And I'm curious because I would like to move from nonprofit work into for-profit work, or maybe vice versa. I see another question coming in here about what's it like to work at a mid-sized tech company, pros and cons. So a few pros is that you have access to so many people. At our company, we have a leadership team like at a lot of other companies at Asana. And the leadership team is really accessible. And so if I want to ask the CEO a question or the CFO a question, I can send them a task in Asana or on Slack or other products to contact them, and typically they'll respond. The other thing I would also say about working at a mid-sized company is that you have a much better exposure and learning opportunities to different areas of the business. So if you're working at a company that maybe has 50,000 people at it, those different functions or departments might be more siloed. Whereas at a smaller company, people interact and collaborate more often, and you get more exposure to the work and more opportunities. I see a question coming in here. Is this going to be saved? It definitely is going to be saved, and it's going to be posted on the Built by Girls IG, so you can come back and visit it anytime. Another thing that I've been thinking about a lot is what are some ways in which maybe you can build your skills if you feel like you only have very limited exposure to certain types of work, or maybe, you're still really early in considering what even kind of work that you're interested in. You might be in high school. My biggest advice to you is to focus on what lights you up and spend a lot of time thinking about where are the areas where I already enjoy learning more. Where are the areas where I spend my time like maybe researching on IG or following people who have interesting lives. Start there. So for example, I knew that I really liked fashion. Some of you out there might enjoy getting dressed up, maybe experimenting with cosmetics, or you might be really into crafting. And I would see people like, there's a woman named Joy Cho. And I saw like she had this great blog way back in the day, and now she has a really vibrant IG. And I was like, how did this person build this business where she has all this fun, creative, party supplies and stuff like that? And I followed her on LinkedIn. I saw where she went to school, what she studied. I saw what kind of first job that she had, and she was a graphic designer to start off with. And that taught me a couple of things. One, most people don't start by starting their business. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. They have experiences before that. The second thing that they taught me is that it takes time. So everything that you're doing is skill building. You're gathering little crumbs of inspiration, a connection, and skill and learning. The other thing that it taught me is that what she talked about a lot on her blog is that she wanted to have a place where she could make designs that really reflected her personality. So another takeaway there is that your voice is valid. So even though you may not see a lot of people out there in the industry and in the world talking and thinking about the things that you're interested in, there are people just like you. So you can create a TikTok, you can create a IG, and start talking about the things that you're interested. Focus on teaching other people what you already know, and people will start to engage with you. And that can give you interest or insight of like, maybe I could dig deeper into this. Maybe I could reach out to people who are in this space and get insight into how the ways in which they're growing their career. So just to recap, 1, spend some time by yourself, journaling, writing, maybe even coloring or watercoloring. What am I interested in? What am I passionate about? What are my values? What do I care about? One of my values is community. Another one of my values is learning. And then think about where are the areas where people are building community? Where are the areas where people are focused on learning? So I easily could have become a teacher if I was focused on learning, but I knew that I didn't want to work in a traditional school environment. So the next question I had for the people in my network was, where are other areas where you do teaching and you can be paid for teaching or paid for developing other people? And that's one of the things that led me to focusing on learning and development. Another thing, I'm just looking here at some questions that I was thinking about would be really interesting to you guys. So one of the other things that I've heard out there is that there are a lot of career myths. And one myth that I've heard in the past is that you shouldn't job hop. You should be loyal to the job that you have. And, it looks bad on your resume if you stay at a job for less than a year. So in certain cases, that is true. But what I have found to be more true from friends or from other people in my community is that that can be a really good opportunity to get exposure to different skills. And that even if you only stay at a job for 1 year or 2 years, you can still learn something and you can still preserve your relationships. So I'm going to talk a bit more about what that means. So I think the reason why people say that job hopping is bad is because it says that you yourself are maybe flaky or not reliable, or that if the company invests in you, maybe they really won't get a return on their investment if you leave very quickly. So what I hear when I hear that is that people are fearful about damaging relationships. And as we just talked about a few minutes ago, relationships are really important when you're navigating your career and searching for new opportunities. They can both help and hinder you. So one of the things that you should consider is why you're taking the job. So that's why I said focusing on your values and be really clear that okay, if I have a value around community or around learning, I'm taking this job because it's giving me exposure to how you build community in a tech company, or how you build community, or how you teach other engineers to code or new coding languages. So that way, when you take on that job, that's front and forward with your manager and with your colleagues. And then if the opportunity changes, if the projects that you're working on don't give you an opportunity to do that, or you get an opportunity to do something a little bit different, or you see a new job out there that you want to apply for, you can be really clear with your boss, with your coworkers. I'm really curious about going deeper in teaching coding languages to different people. And right now, at this particular job, I don't have the opportunity to do that. I really valued what I've been exposed to and what I've experienced here, but I'm also going to get exposure to doing that at this other opportunity, and I want to stay in touch. So job hopping can actually lead you to advance more quickly in your career. It can increase your salary faster, and it can also give you exposure to more skills to really build your portfolio and your brand. I see a question coming in from Allison. What advice do you have for someone who's had to take a year off and is now trying to re-enter the workforce, especially now in the midst of pandemic? So Allison, this is a question where I think that vulnerability is really important. Employers like recruiters and the people who are screening resumes or doing the interviews, they're people too. And that they know that there are circumstances that take people out of the workforce. So I would be really clear and very honest and say, I had to step away from work maybe because you were caregiving. Or maybe you were having a personal crisis. And I say as much as you feel comfortable saying, but I think really leading with your honesty and your humanity resonates with people. And then you can talk about maybe what that experience or that time away taught you and how that can be applicable to the job or the situations on the job that you might be facing. So if you're taking care of a loved one in your family, and that's how you took time off, or you yourself were sick, one of the things you could talk about is it taught you about prioritization. You had to be really clear about what was in focus and what wasn't, and how to be really efficient with your time. So you could heal, or so that you could support other people that you were healing. Each situation might be a little bit different, but I think that recruiters and hiring managers really respond to honesty in those situations. What encourages you to keep going? It's hard to keep working when there's no encouragement. So one of the things that I'll share with each of you is that I also suffer from imposter syndrome and low motivation, or just feeling like maybe I'm not as capable as I think I am sometimes. I don't know anyone who doesn't suffer from this at certain moments. I'll share with you a piece of advice that a mentor shared with me. They said that if you can't believe in yourself in certain moments, at least believe what other people, especially those who are close and in your circle, your support circle, are telling you. Believe in what they say about you and quiet the voices about yourself. And one tactical way to do this, some of you may know of Brene Brown. She writes about vulnerability a lot. She told the story once about how whenever she was writing her books, she would think about all the critics and she would try to write in a way so that people wouldn't criticize her. And then she realized how silly that was, because she's not writing the books for the people who are already skeptical and critical of her. She's writing them for her community, her family, her friends, the people that she cares about. And it would be much better for her to focus on those people while she was writing so she could serve them. And so when I read this story, I was like, that's such a good idea. And in fact, when I started at Asana, I was really nervous because this is a big job, a new opportunity, my first real big leadership role. And I thought there's going to be moments where I don't think I can do this. So what I asked before I started is I asked all of my friends and family, send me one picture of yourself, your favorite picture of yourself, one of you smiling. And I also want you to send me maybe 1 or 2 words of encouragement. And I collected all those pictures. I collected all those words of encouragement, and I put them in a little photo album. And I put the photo album in my desk. So whenever I had a moment where I doubted myself, I could take it out, look at it, and remind myself that there's this whole community of people rooting for me. And there are people rooting for you too. I can take a few more questions. We probably have about 4 more minutes. One of the other things that I'm going to talk about is how do you keep going, especially when you might be getting a lot of rejection. The pandemic is really tough for everybody right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I would be lying if I said that I could offer more certainty for anyone, including myself. But what you can do is focus on making sure that you are exposing yourself to as many people as possible in terms of reaching out and saying, I'm interested in this. What could you tell me about your path and your journey here? And could you keep me in mind if you see or hear of opportunities that maybe are tied to my interests? Like, I want to work at a smaller tech company. I want to work on fitness apps, or maybe you want to work in community organizing. Those are all, no one will know what your dream is unless you speak it aloud. And I actually got my job at Asana because a friend knew I was really passionate about mentoring. We talked about it, and 6 months later, they reached out and they said, hey, I remember we had a conversation about mentoring one time. We have a new opportunity here, and I don't know if you're looking for a new job, but maybe you're interested in it. So that's the first thing. Speak your dream aloud. 2 is try again and again. At Asana, sometimes people apply and they're not a good fit for the role. But there are many people who work at Asana today who applied 2 or 3 times, and in certain cases to different roles, and eventually they were hired, and now they're such beloved members of the team. Just because you don't get the opportunity today doesn't mean that you won't get it in the future. The other thing I'll mention is that I went to Harvard, and a lot of people, when they see that or think about that, think that everything has, that was a great accomplishment and that everything's been easy from there on out. That is not true. And I'll give you 2 stories. I have 2 roommates. One of them, her dream was to be a doctor her whole life. Both of her parents are doctors. Her sister's a doctor. She graduated from Harvard, didn't get into medical school. She took her exams again, didn't get in again. She took it a 3rd time and finally applied and got in. And I have another friend, another roommate I had from college. Her dream was to work at Disney. She applied 3 times before she was accepted. And I tell you this because these are women who, I think on paper, people said they had every opportunity. And of course they would get the job on the first try. But the other thing that they did is that they were persistent. And they kept going back and they kept learning and saying, well, what could I have done better in this situation? And applying, and eventually were successful. So I know it might be challenging right now to stay motivated and to keep trying or hear no. But persistence is really important. Are there any last questions that are coming through before we wind down? It's been really great talking with all of you today. It's a shame that we had a few technical difficulties, but I'm so happy that you rolled with me. We're going to be saving this IG Live. And if you'd like to reach out, you can find this live saved on Built by Girls. You can also follow me at Joanna the Joyful. And feel free to reach out to me either in the DMs or on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to give career advice, and I'm deeply passionate about connecting you with your dreams. I tend to share a lot about how do you stay motivated, how do you live a life that reflects your values, and I'm really passionate about helping especially young women and female identified folks how to do that. Bye everyone.